And we're back and looking at the Sparrowhawk. Whoopsie doodle. I went ahead and put the tail, vertical fin, and rudder panel on, assembly, whatever you want to call it. And the reason for that is that it needs to be faired into this ridge that runs along the top of the rear fuselage. So this needs to be faired in here with filler, and also faired to match this, the radius of this bit of filler along the base of that spine. So since that's the case, I can't really do that work after the fuselage itself has been completely prepped for paint. It's going to have to be prepped for paint as one piece. The horizontal stabilizer can be added later. That can be set up, prepped, and sanded and filled, spackled separately, because there really isn't much of a flange around it. Where it inserts into the fuselage there, the horizontal slot, you can see here there's a small fillet at the front of it, but really not much going on along the length of that joint. And I mean, this is one reference book that I found, but there are several photographs on the internet. This one is depicted with a slight fillet at this location, but that too, that could be sort of replicated with paint or with a paper cardstock fillet, which is probably what I'm leaning towards doing, is just cutting a cardstock fillet and basically lacquering it with this stuff, this sand and seal from Deluxe. This stuff is really good for a lot of different things. One, after all of the spackle is applied and sanded away and the grain is fairly well removed, a coating of this will seal that filler. So if I've got spackle fillets and fairings on the airplane, this stuff will seal that. So it's good for that. It's also really good to apply over cardstock. This stuff will harden and change the density of the cardstock, make it much more dense, almost as if you were taking it more towards a ply product, a birch ply product. It's not quite that stiff, but it stiffens it significantly and surfaces it, surfaces the paper, which is fine, and it can be lightly sanded on. Once it's applied over the cardstock, you can actually sand the cardstock, fine grit sandpaper, and not very rigorously, but it can be done. So Sand and Seal Deluxe, that's a great product for the work that I'm doing here on these, on getting these surfaces prepped for paint. So I've got 3 applications of filler to the fuselage proper, and 1 coating of the sand and seal over that. So the only thing that's separate from that now is the vertical fin and stabilizer, vertical fin and rudder. This has no product on it whatsoever. It's just on there. And the reason I did that is because the filler that I'm going to apply to it, I'm going to be fairing along here and along the base, and then sanding it to conform to what's happening with this spine, this ridge piece here. Right, so the filler that I apply to that, I want it to blend much more with the fuselage. So I went ahead and applied, as I say, I went ahead and applied this piece now, just so I could do all that work and have it all be simultaneous and have the fuselage, fin and rudder look more as if they are one piece. So that's the reasoning behind that. That's why it's on there now. Fleshing out the cockpit, getting all the detail in there, getting a panel going. I'll be doing that probably later today and tomorrow. Trying to get that done. And then once that's done and the engine is where I I kind of want it. And again, I'm not going to be doing too much detail to the engine because it's sitting behind that crankcase bell, and it's under the cowling. The cowling is fitted over it, so there won't be much of it visible other than just the cylinders. So they'll have ignition wire run to each cylinder, but I'm thinking probably not much more detail than that. Again, this is what you see of the motor. You know, once everything's installed. You can also see here the Dumas is more of a cowling, whereas the aircraft had more or less of a speed ring, not a cowling, but just a speed ring. That's the difference, is that on a cowling you have this return over the front of the motor, like right here. But with a speed ring, it's really just what it seems like. There's no real return edge, like flange over the face of the cylinder heads. It's just, it would be as if we were cutting it off right about here and just putting a ring with no flanging on it around the cylinder heads, like the P-26 has. The P-shooter has a speed ring, and that's literally what they called it. It wasn't a cowling, it was a speed ring. But I'm going to go ahead and use the Dumas part. I'm going to use this part for this aircraft. Again, the reason why is that I like to use the kit components wherever I can, more or less in deference to the kit manufacturers who provided me with this material. I didn't, pardon me, I'm going to be sneezing in a second. Wow, okay. You know, I didn't create this from plans. I didn't scratch build this airplane. I'm using a kit, and for that reason I'm going to use as much of the kit as I can. And I send photographs of the finished models to the manufacturers. I'll send pictures of this kit when it's done to Dumas, just as I did with the Air Express and with the Hall's Bulldog and the GBR. I'm sorry, the Z. What is that? It's a Z1. The GBZ and the I can't think of the other one's name. It's the Super Solution, the layered Super Solution.